So what has happened along this trail of finding all this cool stuff out is and feeling good a lot more. I'm going to get to the question right now because I could go on, but so I ultimately stopped like eating meat and dairy, and it really it's funny because it almost was like a full circle thing. Like all of a sudden, like man, I just started feeling good and better and better. And this has been like for the last 2 or 3 years. And I thought, well, shit, why didn't I start off with my health and food?
Well, here's the conversation that
did I say should? Could you bleep that in the recording? Just kidding. Go ahead.
Here's the conversation that we really want to have around that. When you find your high-flying disc, and from it you are inspired to behavior, then there's ease in it, there's power in it, there's results in it. So our friend applauded when you say that, and meaning that there are a lot of people that would like everybody to just take that at face value and perform that function, do that action in order to get the results that he wishes for you. And we are saying it's a little backwards. Find the high-flying disc and be inspired to the behavior. And the thing that just twists your brain into a knot is that 100 people can get on their high-flying disc and be inspired to 100 different experiences. But humans want the experiences to all be static. They want to say, this experience will yield same results to everyone. But that's not understanding what's in each individual vortex. That's not taking into consideration who you were when you came and the balance that you're wanting to strike as a whole. So we are suggesting that when 100 of you, all of you, 100 of you, get into that high-flying disc and maintain it consistently, that you will individually be inspired to the life experience that you have selectively sifted and put into your vortex. And in many cases, your behaviors will be similar, but in many cases, your behaviors will not. And that's what we meant earlier when we said, choose the frequency, not the thought. Choose the frequency, not the topic. Choose the frequency, not the methodology. Choose the frequency, not the behavior. Choose the frequency and let law of attraction and the source within you guide you to a perfection that you can't find otherwise. You said it better than we could, that your heart is beating and you're not controlling it. You're not going to heart-beating classes. Why are you here? Because I want to make sure my heart beats appropriately. I'm going to read all of the medical journals, and I'm going to teach my heart how to act appropriately. You don't do that, do you? You don't, do you? Do you do that? Good conversation, isn't it? Creating from the inside out is what it is.
I mean, I can tell you that, my heart feels great. My insides feel great. And I'm getting really even closer to the question, but because it's weird. I mean, when I said when I bring that up, I don't eat meat, I don't eat dairy, and I usually don't want to bring it up for a lot of reasons. Usually I don't want to have the conversation with people because, you have to eat meat. Well, why? Because you were brought up eating meat?
Well, you're not. You're having the conversation with yourself, so you might as well be having it with someone else.
That's true, maybe. But so the real question is
same difference.
Because part of what really led to this was I grew up not feeling good because we ate a lot of meat. That was one thing. So I wanted to eat less meat.
You grew up not feeling good because you weren't chronically on the high-flying disc.
But my body didn't feel good
we're
either.
not disagreeing that you haven't found a perfect balance for you.
All right.
We just want, there are so many people that in whatever way find alignment and they find a behavior and then they want everybody to follow this precise behavior in order to feel good. And we say that's the cart before the horse. We want you to feel good and then be inspired to the behavior. And because otherwise what happens to a lot of people is that they look at the results of vibration. In other words, they're looking at the manifestations that people around them are producing. and then they're cataloging them and pigeonholing them and trying to guide people toward those behaviors. And that makes them sort the piles into good piles and bad piles, good things to eat and bad things to eat, which causes people to, in the avoidance of the unwanted things, to just drive themselves deeper and deeper into sort of seclusion. Well, we don't want you to have to drive yourself into seclusion. We want you to be out where everything is, trusting that law of attraction is just going to bring to you the things that really are beneficial to you, because you're in the frequency that helps you find the things that really are in vibrational alignment with who you are and what you want. You see what we're getting at? Can you feel the difference?
So I should just keep doing what feels good for me.
Yes. And what makes you want to talk about it? Anytime someone is arguing for, and we're being very gentle with that word, advocating, anytime someone is advocating for their behavior in a really strong way, it's an indication to us that they're not solidly on the disc. And so they're looking for support from others. When you're solidly on the disc, law of attraction is bringing you all the support you need. And we think that feeling wonderful is the evidence that you're looking for.
Yeah, I was just asking Abraham. Just kidding.
Well, we are flattered that you seek our opinion. And we are wanting you to know that you find the opinion of your source in the resonance of emotions that feel good. Ooh,
boom.
Ooh, 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 ooh.
Sweet.
That you find the opinion of your source in the resonance of the emotions that feel good. And you can just apply it all day, every day on every subject. And you're going to discover, have you ever watched an animal diverge from its normal instinctual diet? Don't you think it's interesting that some animals eat grasses, some animals eat meat? Don't put your dog on your diet. You see, he won't go, he won't stay. And he's on his high-flying disc when he chooses to. So, but have you ever seen an animal deviate from its normal, aligned pattern of behavior, following a craving? Because an instinct is saying an introduction of this to your diet on this day at this time would be good for you. And so we wouldn't be rigid about any behavior. We would say, I mean to be inspired, because there are things that your chemical factory wants that are in foods that you are not eating. And it's doing a good job of compensating, but when you get really singular in any direction in diet, you ask your body to work harder in the production of what it needs. So the more balanced your diet is, the more your body has to work with, you see.
Are the animals suffering? That's the real question, I guess. Because when I saw something that
Esther yesterday, or day before yesterday, bought for her Texas guest house. She doesn't want us to tell you, but we're going to. A hassock made out of cowhide. And when she saw it, she liked it so much. And it looked so good in the room. And she said, there are so many of my friends that are not going to like me now. And then she thought, because she lived in a little town across from a dairy farm, and they were Holstein cows, and so is her hassock. And she thought, there's going to be a lot of judgment about the rightness or the wrongness of this from the perspective of others. And then she thought about the time that she and Jerry found one of their chickens in the bushes, and the neighbor's dog had eaten part of it for lunch. And Esther was so upset about it, and she was mad at the dog. And then later we asked her what she'd had for lunch. And she explained to us that they eat strangers' chickens. That they don't eat the chickens that have names. And so this is a big discussion, isn't it, about the appropriateness or the inappropriateness of behavior. And we're just wanting to help you free yourself. We would never, ever encourage you to do something that feels uncomfortable when you're doing it. The most detrimental thing that you could ever do to yourself, vibrationally, point of attraction-wise, viscerally, physically, cellularly, the worst thing that you could do to yourself is to do something that you believe is inappropriate, because that's just asking for split energy, and the only thing that's ever detrimental to you is your own split energy. So there is a certain amount of ease in picking a philosophy and lining up with the philosophy, but there is also a sort of confinement and bondage in deciding that this is just the way it is forevermore because, and there's a freedom in moving through the world in tune with source energy, being inspired to the behavior on all subjects that is appropriate in this moment based upon where you are and where you're at in relationship to where you want to be. We know you have to sort of take it on faith. You have to accept that you were source energy before you came, and the larger part of you still is, and you have to take it on faith sometimes that that source within you knows who you are, who you really are, where you really want to be, and where you are in relationship with where you really want to be and who you really want to be. But once you get that in place, once you get that understanding in place, and then you factor in that your emotions are letting you know where you are in that equation all the time, and now you are really ready, willing, wanting, practiced, and good at following your bliss, then you just can't go wrong. And you're going to find a rather varied trail that allows you. It's like living to a higher calling. It's like living to a higher principle. It's like living to the principle of expansion and eternalness, you see. You can't live by that short-sighted view. How often do you ask someone's opinion of something? Esther will never forget. They had a friend who was a real estate salesperson and also a broker. He was deep into real estate, and he was in a financial bind. And Jerry and Esther were visiting with him about perhaps, potentially, purchasing some property. And Jerry or Esther, one of them, said to him, "So what would you do? What do you think we should do after exploring some options?" And he blurted out, he didn't mean to, but he blurted out, "Well, I think you should buy something or sell something." And what he was actually saying, he didn't mean to say it, was, "I don't really care what you do, but if I'm going to get any money for this," in other words, in order to satisfy my intention, something's got to move here. So you guys got to make a decision about something, because I'm not getting a commission on something unless it moves. So either buy something or sell something. And Jerry and Esther both burst out laughing in the moment, because it was so apparent that there was no possible way that this other person could advocate on their behalf. His intentions had to be factored in. So every time you ask anybody's opinion about something, their opinions have to be factored in. It skews it and it slants it dramatically. And you should not resent them for being self-advocates. Everyone's got to be that, you see. But you have a source within you who is a self-advocate of all self-advocates, who advocates for the self that is you in ways that we can't even begin to describe. And once you've practiced that high-flying disc, once you've practiced it and you are solidly there so that you can follow those emotions and you know what they mean, then you're going to be maybe in a lot of places you never thought you'd be, but living happily ever after. If Esther had had her way, we promise you, she would never have stood on a stage and allowed Abraham to flow through her in front of those like you. She would not have let that weird thing happen. If that question had ever had been put to her in that way. But she just kept following her bliss and following her bliss and following her bliss, and it has led to this and is leading to so much more. You see, just can't. So we're just saying it's not really a good idea to really feel firmly about what you're not going to do. Just talk about how you do want to feel and let your guidance guide you to everything that enhances that. Can't go wrong. It's our promise to you.
Yes. So then it's about, it almost brings us back to how we all got here. It's about belief, and we can change it. We can ultimately change our beliefs.
A belief is just
whatever.
a thought you practice. That's
right.
all it is. A belief is just a thought you keep thinking. And the reason you believe it is because you practice the vibration of it, and law of attraction demonstrated it to you, so you said, see, it's true. And we say, Yeah, but it's true because you focused upon it. We started there today. Esther said it's true. We said, is it something that's true that feels good or something that's true that doesn't feel good? That's the distinction that we would make.